Good afternoon, ENG 2D. Ms. Boshcoff here. We're going to try to move ahead here with our study of Macbeth. Granted, this is not ideal. Very many of you do not have the actual hard copy of the text. However, there is an online version that you can take a look at. And what I'm going to try to do is, for those of you who don't have an actual hard copy in front of you, I'm just going to use my phone and have you follow along in my teacher copy here with along with my annotations. So that might even work out a little bit better. I'm going to be posting this obviously to the Edsby wall, and for those of you who are having trouble understanding or deciphering things, you can always go back a little bit later and rewatch or re-listen to the videos. All right, so let's get started here. If you do have the copy of Macbeth, I'm going to have you turn to the map here on page 4. This is a map of Scotland back in the medieval time here. And we're going to take a look at some of the important places that we should be familiar with, the names of these things. All right, so we have here Glamis, which is the castle of Macbeth, who is the Thane of Glamis, the nobleman of this area in Scotland called Glamis. Note that around his castle is a forest called Burnham Wood. There is also Burnham Hill, and Dunsinane here is part of this little hill ridge as well. Near the end of our play, these locations and these things are going to be quite important. A couple other things I'm going to point out to you. Fife here, this is where Macduff's castle is, and he is also a Scottish nobleman, equivalent in rank to an English earl. So he comes from Fife. Also in here is a place called Scone. Now Scone, if you follow here, it's an ancient royal city where all of the early kings were crowned. So this is going to play an important role as we see some new kings will be crowned throughout this play. Let's take a look here at St. Combs Inch. Now this is an island that divides Scotland and Norway. So this is important because right in the very first act here, we're going to see that the king of Norway, Sweno, is going to be located here on this little island for a particular purpose. Now, at the beginning of our play, we have King Duncan, whose castle here is at Forres. So important to note, Forres there. Now, also there is a Thane of Cawdor. This Thane of Cawdor, you can tell that he lives quite closely here with to the king, King Duncan, and not only are they close in location here, but they were quite close as friends as well. So right near the beginning here, we see that King Duncan actually placed a lot of trust in this Thane of Cawdor. Unfortunately, this Thane of Cawdor is going to betray him. Next, let's move on here to Inverness. An area of Scotland called Inverness. Right here we have Ross. Now there is a Thane of Ross as well. Over in this area here we have the Western Isles, also referred to as the Hebrides, and this is where a trader, MacDonald, is going to gather an army. He's also going to move in tandem here with the king of Norway, Sweno, who is backing up this rebel army. A couple of other things here. Comkill, this little island here. This is an important thing to note. Many early Scottish kings were buried here, and we're going to see that one of the kings in our play is going to be transported. His body is going to be transported here to Comkill. All right. Another thing to point out here, we also have a Thane Lennox. And again, they are Scottish noblemen who are in charge of these particular areas of land. All right, I think that's pretty much everything here. Let's move along to the dramatis personae, which lists the characters in the play. So Duncan here, we have the King of Scotland, this right at the onset here of the play. We have Malcolm and Donalbain. Malcolm is his eldest son, and then we have Donalbain. We have then Macbeth and Banquo. Macbeth and Banquo are both generals in this king's army. And we'll see that at the very beginning, they encounter some very strange things upon a heath, which is like a big field. We also have some noblemen, as I've also mentioned. We have Macduff, Lennox, Roth, Menteith, Angus, and Caithness. We have Fleance here, who is Banquo's son, who is a general in the army. Fleance plays a really important role in our play, so please remember his name. We have Siward, who is the Earl of Northumberland, and he is the general in the English army. Now, so again, we have a couple of countries here being referred to. Most of this play is going to take place here in Scotland. There will be reference to, of course, Norway, because the King of Norway, Sweno, is backing up the rebel army. And then we also, near the end, will have mention of the English forces from England. So Siward here is a general in the English army. Young Siward is his son. We have Satan, who is an officer attending on Macbeth. So somebody who is, does his, his dirty work, kind of. There's a boy who is son to Macduff. Macduff here, who is a nobleman, who is, and really truly is quite noble. So I'll just give you a heads up on that one. An English doctor, a Scottish doctor, a sergeant, a porter. A porter here is somebody who is in charge of letting in people beyond the gates to a castle. So he plays actually a quite funny role. There's an old man. There's Lady Macbeth here, who is Macbeth's wife, and then we have Lady Macduff, who is Macduff's wife. There is a gentlewoman attending on Lady Macbeth, like a servant. Hecate here is Queen of the Witches, and then we have 3 witches that we are going to encounter right at the very onset of our play here. They are synonymous, or they parallel what is known as the 3 fates, or the Maori. Now these 3 fates, actually, sometimes they're referred to as the 3 weird sisters. They are 3 weaving goddesses who assign destinies to humans. So they are in charge of when somebody is born, what happens throughout their life, and they have big old scissors that they use to cut the cord of people's lives when they feel that it is time for them to pass away. We have some ghosts, some apparitions, also lords, gentlemen, officers, soldiers, murderers, attendants, and messengers. So our initial scene here is in Scotland. So let's get right into this. Act 1, Scene 1. So this is set in medieval Scotland, again, medieval ages, the Middle Ages. The play opens in an isolated and wild place. Now this is important because it foreshadows isolation and upheaval. We call that pathetic fallacy. They reveal, amid thunder and lightning, 3 witches enter. Again, here we have some more upheaval, right? A storm is brewing, and it sure as heck is. They reveal characteristics traditionally associated with witchcraft. They know in advance the outcome of a civil war that's being fought in Scotland. And number 2, they also know when and where they will encounter Macbeth, one of the generals. The witches are called away by their companion spirits, the 2 animal spirits here, Grey Malkin, which is a cat, and Paddock, a toad, and then they fly off into the murky air, very mysterious. So this sets up a mood that is quite dark and malevolent. I also want to point out here that for Act 1, there are 7 scenes. It's fairly long, or it sounds fairly long, but each of these scenes is quite short. And the reason why Shakespeare used these short little scenes is to keep the action moving along fairly quickly. So let's get right into this. Act 1, Scene 1. We are again a desert place, thunder and lightning, enter 3 witches. The first witch. I'm going to play an audio version just online here, and I'll post that to Edsby as well. if you would like to listen to that on your own.
When shall we three meet again in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurricane is done, when the battle's lost or won, and we'll be at the seventh sun. Where the place? Upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. I come, brave old King Macbeth, fair is foul and foul is fair. Holla! Through the fog of the air!
And then, of course, the witches vanish. All right, so here at the very beginning, we see that hurly-burly is introduced. And hurly-burly is a word that's gone out of popular use, obviously, and it means turmoil or chaos. And of course, they're referring to this great battle that's going on. It is a civil war that's happening. So it's a civil war happening within Scotland. There has been a rebel army that has risen up against the king, the official king, King Duncan. And as I mentioned before, King Sweno of Norway has joined the rebels. So they're saying, when are we going to meet again? And they said, after the battle has been lost and won. Here we see some color symbolism. Of course, the setting of the sun. They're going to meet in darkness. Again, symbolizing evil. Fair is foul and foul is fair. So this is an important thing to note because it introduces one of the main themes here in our study of Macbeth, and that is the theme of appearance versus reality. So what appears to be fair is actually foul, and what appears to be foul is fair. Disregard of good and their actual preference for foul or evil. So here we see that these witches are not, pleasant witches. They are quite evil. All right, let's keep going here. Act 1, Scene 2. At King Duncan's camp, some distance from the actual fighting, the king, his sons, and attendants are given the latest report from the battlefield. A wounded soldier praises the bravery of the two generals, and we know those two generals are Macbeth and Banquo, and describes their victory over the traitor Macdonald. Remember, Macdonald, I pointed out to you, was putting together this rebel army on the Western Isles, their Hebrides, followed by their defense against Sweno, the king of Norway, whose forces have come to the aid of the rebels. The Thane of Ross arrives to announce the victory of Macbeth and Banquo over Sweno, who has been assisted by another traitor, the Thane of Cawdor. King Duncan orders Cawdor's immediate execution and transfers his title to Macbeth. All the reports stress the violent and bloody nature of the war. So again, we have some pathetic fallacy, which indicates when the environment indicates something else going on in the plot or something maybe going on inside of one of the characters. So there's like a parallelism there. So again, we have this great battle with the rebels being helped by Sweno. Macbeth actually is going to slice up this traitor Macdonald, and it's going to prove his courage and bravery. So again, let's just go over this. We have Scotland here, King Duncan. King Duncan has two brave generals that are going to be mentioned here, Macbeth and Banquo. Now, it's important to note here that Banquo is actually not just another general, but the two of these men work quite closely together, and they have a close friendship as well. And that is going to be really quite important to note because later on there are some actions that are going to be quite surprising. Now, again, here we have a rebel army. So Scotland is at war with itself, assisted by this Thane of Cawdor, who is a traitor, but also assisted by Norway and the King of Sweno. All right, so let's get right back into this. Scene 2, we have a camp near Forres. Remember, Forres where the king's castle is. We have King Duncan, Malcolm his eldest, Donalbain his youngest, Lennox with some attendants meeting with a bleeding soldier.
What bloody man is this? He the report received by his plight of the revolt the new estates.
This is the sergeant who, like a good and hearty soldier, fought gainst my captivity. Hail, brave friend. Say to the king the knowledge of the broil as thou didst leave it.
Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art.
Sorry. So right here at the beginning, we have King Duncan, who announces, oh my gosh, look at this bloody man. I wonder if he can tell us how it's going, how the war is going. And Malcolm, his eldest son, says, oh, I recognize this guy. He's a sergeant. And he actually helped me escape captivity. I recognize him. So he says, he is a brave friend. Can you tell us what's been going on in the war? Give us an update. So the soldier here is going to use the image of two swimmers that are clinging together in the water. So it's like two swimmers that are kind of pulling and pushing each other, and it's hard to tell who is going to be victorious, right? Who is going to take the other person down. So as two spent swimmers that do cling together, they choke their art. So the merciless MacDonald, who is the rebel, and of course we have brave Macbeth. So they're kind of tit for tat. They're quite parallel, and then eventually somebody becomes victorious. Let's take a listen.
Memorize another Golgotha. Carved out his passage till he of kerns and gallows.
His plight of the revolt the new estates.
This is the sergeant who, like a good and hearty soldier, fought gainst my captivity. Hail, brave friend. Say to the king the knowledge of the broil as thou didst leave it.
Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, fought that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of kerns and gallow glasses is supplied, and fortune on his damned quarrel smiling showed like a rebel's whore. But all's too weak for brave Macbeth. Well, he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with brandished steel which smoked with bloody execution like...
Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there. Here we have mention of these Western Isles, the Hebrides. So referring to this traitor MacDonald, who had gathered up multiplying villainies of nature, and they were swarming on these Hebrides islands. So he had kerns and gallow glasses. So these are lightly armed and more heavily armed soldiers. So according to the soldier, though, Fortune or Fortuna, hopefully you did that reading on Fortuna, and how Fortuna's wheel is constantly turning. And so you never know when her wheel is going to turn and somebody's fortune is going to be reversed. So it looked like they were, quite equally keeping up with each other until brave Macbeth comes along and he is able to move against fortune with his brandished steel. So here we have some imagery, and it smoked. His sword smoked with all of the bloody executions he had given. So like Valor's minion, he carved out his passageway, carved it out with his sword, right? And he came face to face with MacDonald, which never shook hands, and he never bid farewell to him. But what he did do is he unseamed him from the nape, from his belly button, all the way up to his chaps, to his chin. So what he did is he dug his sword in, and he ripped him open with his sword all the way open, killed him. Duncan is going to be super impressed by this, right? And he's going to say, oh, I'm so impressed with you. You are not just a worthy gentleman, a brave soldier, but you are also my valiant cousin. Now, this is an important thing to note because it means that Macbeth has a chance, some chance, at the throne, right? Okay, so in Scotland at this time, it wasn't a given that the next person for the throne, in line for the throne, would be the eldest. Sometimes in Scotland, other members of the family would grab the throne, right? Depending on who was most capable. Now we're going to see here though that Duncan does have somebody in line to be next in line to the throne for his successor. All right, so again we see Macbeth slices his open from his navel to the jaws.
Like Valor's minion carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps, and fixed his head upon our battlements.
Oh, valiant cousin, worthy gentlemen.
As whence the sun gins his reflection, shipwrecking storms and direful thunders break, so from that spring whence comfort seemed to come, discomfort swells. Mark, King of Scotland, mark. No sooner justice had, with valor armed, compelled the skipping kerns to trust their heels, but the Norwegian lord, surveying vantage, with furbished arms and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault.
All right, so just like a storm following a rising sun, a fresh new assault began on Macbeth. So they had lots of men, and Swino's army decided to put forth a fresh assault. And so, dismayed not this our captain. No, Macbeth and Banquo, they were so brave, according to this soldier. So the soldier is going to explain how the two generals, Macbeth and Banquo, doubled up on their ammunition. So his cannons overcharged with double cracks. Yeah. So the soldier said, I don't know if they meant for it to be a bloodbath or not. Golgotha is a Christian term referring to where Jesus Christ was put on the cross. So again, I don't know if they meant it to be a bloodbath or not, but it was.
Not this our captains, Macbeth and Banquo?
Yes, as sparrows eagles or the hare the lion. If I say sooth, I must report they were as cannons, overcharged with double cracks, so they doubly redoubled strokes upon the foe. Except they meant to bathe in reeking wounds, or memorize another Golgotha, I cannot tell. But I'm faint, my gashes cry for help.
So well thy words become me as thy wounds. They smack of honor both. Go, get him, sergeants.
Yeah, so gives him a great compliment.
What a haste look through his eyes. So should he look, that seems to speak things straight.
God save the king!
Whence camest thou, worthy Thane?
From Fife, great king. Where the Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold. Norway himself, with terrible numbers, assisted by that most disloyal traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began a dismal conflict. Till that Bellona's bridegroom, leapt in proof, confronted him with self-comparisons.
All right, so here we have another report of what's going on in the war. Enter Ross, and he's just been around Fife, where Norway himself, the king himself, with lots and lots of numbers, assisted by the traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began yet another conflict. So what ended up happening here is, in comes Macbeth. And he refers to Macbeth as Bellona's bridegroom. So bridegroom means husband, and Bellona here is the Roman goddess of war. So giving Macbeth a great compliment here, suggesting that he was so courageous. He was like the husband of the goddess of war. So he began to prove how brave he was. He confronted the king like face to face, and point against point. They went at it with their swords, point against point, rebellious arm against rebellious arm. So Swino and Macbeth fight. And again, we see here that this original Thane of Cawdor is a traitor. He betrays the original king. Curbing his lavish spirit, and to conclude, finally, the victory fell on us. So this is great news. Duncan is going to be so happy with this, right? Ross is then going to suggest that Swino, the Norway's king, he is wanting to set terms for a truce, except for Ross is going to explain that we would not even let him bury his dead until he gave us $10,000. Once he gives us $10,000, Then we'll let him bury his dead, and we'll talk about the terms for a truce. Then Duncan says, no more shall that Thane of Cawdor deceive me. Now this is important because it introduces the theme of deception, appearance versus reality. It appeared that they had this trustworthy friendship, but it wasn't. It was deception. It was appearance versus reality. Our bosom interest, like we were close. He was close to my, to me. Pronounced his present death, and with his former title, greet Macbeth. Because he is so impressed, the king is so impressed with Macbeth's bravery, he's going to give all of the area, the land from Cawdor to Macbeth. This is going to be a great honor to Macbeth. So not only is he going to be the Thane of Glamis, which was his family, lands, he is now also going to be the Thane of Cawdor. Ross says, I'll see it done. What he hath lost, noble Macbeth had won. Okay, so let's keep going here with the audio.
Point against point rebellious, arm against arm, curbing his lavish spirit. And to conclude, the victory fell on us.
Great habits.
And now, Sweno, the Norway's king, craves composition.
Sorry.
Nor would we deign him burial of his men till he disperse it at St. Colmy's Ench, $10,000 to our general use.
No longer that Thane of Cawdor shall receive our boot and interest. Go, pronounce his present death, and with his former title, great Macbeth.
I'll see it done.
What he hath lost, noble Macbeth hath won.
So now Macbeth has two titles, right? Thane of Glamis and Thane of Cawdor. Let's take a look here at Act 1, Scene 3. In this scene, the witches gather in a bleak place, somewhere between the battlefield and Duncan's palace at Forest. They report with delight the discomforts they have been causing, and then prepare a spell for Macbeth. So again, establishing that these witches are evil. They are taking great delight in playing with humans. Macbeth and Banquo, the generals, who are on their way to Forest, to the palace, enter and are astonished to see the witches and to hear what they have to say. The witches tell Macbeth that he will become Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, and thirdly, King of Scotland. So they make prophecies, 3 prophecies here. Banquo asks the witches to tell him about his future, but the answers he receives are not filled, but they are filled with paradox. They are seemingly absurd or contradictory, but when investigated later on, may prove to be true. All right, the witches prophesy that Banquo will be both lesser and greater than Macbeth. So first prophecy. Number 2, not so happy, but happier. And then number 3, not king himself, but father a line of kings. So these are some interesting prophecies as well. And then, of course, the witches vanish very mysteriously. Banquo is skeptical of the prophecies, but Macbeth believes them. The first of his prophecies has already been fulfilled. The death of his father has made him Thane of Glamis, the area called Glamis. In addition, Ross and Angus arrive very shortly after the witches have disappeared, and tell Macbeth that the king has named him now Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth thinks immediately of murdering Duncan, which would open the way for the third prophecy to come true, even though he's going to admit how horrifying that idea is going to be to him. He's surprised that his brain actually went to that place. Okay, so let's get into it here. Scene 3. A heath, again, like an open field where very little grows. And thunder, a great storm externally. And it's going to be a great storm internally for Macbeth too. So internal conflict. Enter the 3 witches.
Where hast thou been, sister? Killing swine. Sister, where thou? A sailor's wife, with chestnuts in her lap, and munched, and munched, and munched. Give me, quoth I. Arrive thee, witch, the rump-fed runyon cries. Her husband's to Aleppo gone, master of the tiger, but in a sieve I'll to the sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll give you one, not kind, and I myself am all the other. very ports they blow, all the quarters that they know in the shipman's card. I'll drain him dry as hay. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon his penthouse lid. He shall live a man forbid. Weary 7 nights, 9 times 9 shall he dwindle. Peak and pine, though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed.
All right, so the 3 witches are just having a little discussion here about how much fun they've been having. The 3rd witch here says, "Where have you been?" And the 1st witch says, "Oh, I have been around a sailor's wife, and she had some chestnuts, and I asked her to share them with me, but the wife said, no, get the heck out of here, witch." And then the witch realized, I'm going to get some revenge on this sailor's wife. Her husband has gone to Syria and is the captain of a ship called the Tiger. Now, witches, let's take a look at the annotations here. Witches could transform themselves into other shapes, usually animals. They were also believed to be sellers of wind. So they had control over the wind. And what else? Down here at the bottom, it was believed that witches could not cause a ship to be wrecked. They could only make the voyage perilous. So that's exactly what this witch is going to do. She's going to get some revenge on this sailor's wife for not sharing her chestnuts with her. So she's going to make a big storm come up. I'll give you a wind and I'll give you another wind, selling wind. And then the 1st witch says, I have another myself. So we'll combine all of the winds that we have and we will make her husband have a very perilous journey on his boat. We can't make the ship actually crash, but we sure can have fun with him. And we'll actually make his journey really dangerous for a total of 7 nights. Weary 7 nights, 9 times 9. Shall he dwindle, peak and pine? So he's going to be on the high seas, and it's going to be very, very dangerous. So this is important because it sets up the witches to be revengeful, and not only that, enjoying tormenting humans. All right, let's keep going here.
Look what I have. Show me, show me. Here, a pilot's thumb. Wrecked as homeward he did come. A drum, Macbeth doth come. The weird sisters, hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus to go about, thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to mine. The charms wound up.
All right, so here we see that these weird sisters, let's take a look here. Weird comes from the Saxon word weird, meaning fate. So they are in charge of the fate of humans, right? So this actually makes sense in this context. Thus, the witches are describing themselves as foretellers of fate or destiny. Yeah, so what they're doing is they are putting a spell together. And it looks like the spell has to do with Macbeth. And whatever spell it is, it's now ready to go. The charms wound up. So in comes Macbeth.
Foul and fair a day I have not seen.
Now this is an important line to point out here because he is echoing here the lines of the witches from the very first page, right? The very first page where the witches say fair is foul and foul is fair. So the fact here that, let me see if I can find, the fact that we see Macbeth echoing this statement shows that he is already under the spell of the witches. Even though they've just wound it up now, it's ready to go, he is already now under their spell. All right, so how far is it to Forres? So they're going to be on their way to see the king. They remember both Banquo and Macbeth have been very victorious, and they're on their way to to see the king and explain what's, just gone down.
Our forest, call to forest.
When they come across these witches.
What are these so withered and so wild in their attire that look not like the inhabitants of the earth and yet are on't? Live you? Or all you want that man may question? You seem to understand me by eats at once her choppy fingers laying upon her skinny lips. You should be women. Yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. Speak if you can. What are you?
Okay, so this is important to note here because we see that these witches, when Banquo and Macbeth encounter them, they're not sure. Are they even human? Are they alive? Are they monsters, like not even from this earth? So again, we see appearance versus reality. What they look like, they may not be, right?
Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glass! Oh, hail, Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor! Oh, hail, Macbeth, that shall be king hereafter!
All right, so these witches have 3 important prophecies for Macbeth. We're going to assume that this is part of the spell that they've put together up here, right? So, all hail Macbeth. Number 1, you are going to be the Thane of Glamis. Number 2, you will be the Thane of Cawdor. And number 3, you shall be king hereafter. Some pretty nice prophecies.
Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are you fantastical? Or that indeed which outwardly you show? My noble partner you greet with present grace, and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not.
All right, so Banquo is standing there saying, hey, you've just given my friend here some pretty good predictions here for the future. What about me? Why aren't you talking to me? Give me some predictions.
If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate.
Hail, hail, hail! Lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy yet much happy. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So hail Macbeth and Banquo.
All right, so he gets 3 prophecies as well. He, in the end, is going to be lesser than Macbeth, but in the end, greater. He's not going to be as happy, but in the end, much happier. And he will not be king himself, but his children shall be kings. So that's actually a pretty good prediction for the future as well.
Macbeth, all hail!
Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more. By Sinel's death I know I'm Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, nor more than to be Cawdor. Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak.
Yeah, so he's questioning, like, how do you know this information? Tell me how you know this. Now that's important to note because a little bit later on, he is going to make some demands of the witches that they tell him more, and they're going to have a lot of fun with him.
I charge you.
The witches just vanish. Again, some appearance versus reality. Was that even real?
The earth has bubbles as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished? Into the air.
And what seemed corporal melted as breath into the wind. Would they had stayed?
So he wanted them to
things
stay.
here as we do speak about?
Did this even happen? Banquo says.
What have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner?
Your children shall be kings.
You shall be king. And
Yeah, so Banquo says here, like, have we eaten on the insane root? So some kind of herb, like similar to marijuana. Have we lost our mind here? Or did this really even happen?
Thane of Cawdor, too, was it not so?
with the self-same tune and words. Here.
So enter
Thane of
Ross and Angus.
The king hath happily received, Macbeth, the news of thy success. And when he reads thy personal venture in the rebels' fight, his wonders and his praises do contend which should be his or thine. silenced with that and viewing all the rest of the self-same day, he finds thee in the stop no way in ranks. Nothing appeared but thyself didst make. Strange images of death. As thick as hail came post with post, and every one did bear thy praises in his kingdom's great defense, and poured them down before him.
Okay, so the Thane of Ross shows up and says to Macbeth and Banquo, well, mostly to Macbeth here, the king has heard the news of how you've been victorious against Sweno and Macdonald, and he is really, really impressed. So let's take a look here. Duncan's response to Macbeth's action alternates between astonishment and gratitude. The king is overwhelmed and has been left speechless by Macbeth's bravery. Excellent. So Banquo was going to say, many messengers came, and every single messenger, post with post, praised your great defense and poured all of your praises down to in front of the king. So saying your praises. So although Macbeth was killing so many of the enemy, he clearly did not fear death himself. So this point is going to really, really impress the king. The king has some ideas on how he is going to honor Macbeth for being so brave. So let's keep going here. Whoops.
I sent from our royal master to give thee thanks, only to herald thee unto his sight, not pay thee.
And for an earnest of a greater honor, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which edition, hail, most worthy Thane, for it is thine.
What? Yeah. So Macbeth didn't know this at the time, of course, but the witch's second prophecy here is true. Now, Banquo is going to suggest that maybe the witches are telling little bits of truth so that they can, trick us really, really big.
What? Can the devil speak true?
The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?
Who was the Thane lives yet?
Okay, so remember at this time, Macbeth has no knowledge of the Thane of Cawdor being a traitor, so he's not aware.
Under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose. Whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both, I know not. But treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him.
Lambs.
Thane of Cawdor. The greatest is behind. Thanks for your pains. Do you not hope your children shall be kings, when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them?
All right, so right here, Angus tells Macbeth, well, you weren't aware of this, but the original Thane of Cawdor was a traitor. He is actually confessed to treason, and of course, when you are a traitor against the king, you must die, which means somebody needs to rule his lands. All right, so aside here, now it's important to note that an aside means no one else on stage can hear, this little bit of information. And then he's going to turn to Banquo and say, it looks like some of these predictions are coming true for me. Do you not wish that your predictions will come true too?
That trusted home might yet enkindle you under the crown besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange. Oftentimes, to win us to our harms, the instruments of darkness tell us truths. Win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence.
All right, so Banquo here is telling some really profound truth here. So he says sometimes a little truth is told so that we fall for things and then we can be blindsided later on. So he is actually being quite cautious here. Where we see Macbeth is going to fall for this. Yeah, hook, line, and sinker. He's going to believe it.
Cousin's a word, I agree.
Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. I thank you, gentlemen. Supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in the truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair?
Okay, so he's thinking aloud here aside. Nobody else can hear this. So he's trying to think, is this prophecy good or is it evil? And he says, if it's good, then why would I immediately think of killing the king so that the next prophecy, that last prophecy, will come true? So he is saying it's a horrible image, and it unfixes his hair. It makes his hair stand on end because he doesn't want to think of himself, as being capable of such thoughts. But he admits to those thoughts. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here.
And make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature.
All right, so he is so scared, like the vision of killing the king has him so scared that his ribs are knocking against his heart in fear. Now this next line here, against the use of nature, this is an important thing to note, because a little bit later on we're going to talk about something called the great chain of being. And so here, Macbeth is saying that he is going against the natural order. You don't kill your king, somebody who is higher up. You don't try to grab positions of honor that are not naturally yours. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Just note that he is going against nature, and this is going to put the whole world into chaos.
Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single-stated man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not.
All right, so here we see that foul is fair and fair is foul, right? So what appears to be is not, right? Appearance versus reality. So he's saying this idea that I have of killing the king, it's not real, it's fantastical, but I wonder why why my brain has even concocted this idea.
Look how our partners read. If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir.
Okay, so here he says, you know what, maybe I don't even need to kill the king. Maybe it's just fate and the crown will just fall on my lap, which is believable. He is a cousin to the king, right? So things like that do happen. Even if he does nothing, he might still be king.
You honors come upon it. Like our strange garments, cleave not to their mold, but to the aid of use.
Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day.
Worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure.
Give me your favor. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered, but every day I turn the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king. Think upon what hath chanced, and at more time, the interim having weighed it, let us speak our free hearts, each to other. Very glad. Till then enough. Come, friends.
All right. So let's just quickly talk about the ending here. So Macbeth is so caught up in his thoughts here that Banquo says he's so wrapped up in his thoughts. We're waiting for you. So worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure. Meaning, we're waiting for you. You ready to go? And he says, oh yes, oh of course. My brain, I was just thinking of something about the past, which is a lie. Right, so now already he's starting to lie, which means, again, he is under the power of the spell of those witches. So then he says here, for sure, let's continue on our way here. Let's go toward the king. But he says to Banquo, everything that's happened with these witches and their predictions, let's talk about it a little bit later, right? And Banquo says, for sure, let's do that. I'll gladly talk to you about that. So at this time, Banquo would be happy to discuss more, but not right now, later. It's important to note this because a little bit later on, Banquo is not going to want to discuss the details with Banquo. All right, so till then, enough. Come, friends. Okay, Act 1, Scene 4. The scene opens as Malcolm, remember King Duncan's eldest son, is describing to Duncan the execution of the former Thane of Cawdor. So remember, Thane of Cawdor was a traitor, and he was in cahoots with MacDonald and the king of Norway, Sweno. and he has been executed. Just as the king is admitting that he was badly misled by the traitor's appearance, he is interrupted by the entrance of Macbeth, who is accompanied by Banquo, Ross, and Angus. The king thanks his generals, right? His generals Macbeth and Banquo, and promises to reward them with even more honors. Now, this is important because this is character delineation, right? Duncan is a good and kind and generous and grateful king. Macbeth should not be thinking of killing him. All right, let's keep going here. He then formally names his son Malcolm as his successor. Now, this is an important thing to note because Macbeth has his eye on the crown, except for now, King Duncan has just formally named his successor to be his eldest son. As a sign of honor to Macbeth, Duncan invites himself and the court to visit Macbeth's castle at Inverness. Macbeth replies with compliments and leaves immediately to prepare his castle for the king's visit. But he is shaken by the king's unprecedented naming of his heir. All right, let's get into this. Act 1, Scene 4. We are at Forres, which is, of course, the king's castle. Flourish, let's take a look here. A flourish is, I'm just going to, okay, to stay down there. A flourish is when trumpets are playing to announce, the king is in attendance. So we have Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbain, Lennox, and some attendants.
Hello, Macduff. Good evening, both.
Is execution done on quarter? Are not those in commission yet returned?
My liege, they are not yet come back. But I have spoke with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treason, implored your highness pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. Nothing in his life became him like believing it. He died as one that had been studied in his death, to throw away the dearest thing he owed as 'twere a careless trifle.
All right. So Duncan says, have you heard yet from the people who are in charge of the execution? Is he dead? And Malcolm says, I haven't heard officially, but I spoke with somebody who was there, and they said that he confessed that he was treasonous. He wanted to be excused or pardoned, and he set forth a deep repentance. He put forth a lot of apologies for betraying the king. And he says nothing in his life became him like the leaving of it. So if only he would have been as truthful in his life as he was when he was leaving his life, right? Okay, so Duncan is going to admit there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. So this was the ultimate deception. Duncan admits, I looked at his face all the time. I never saw any sign of deception. He said, I guess some people can just hide their deception on their face a lot better than others. So again, we see here the introduction or the repetition of this appearance versus reality theme. Enter Macbeth, Banquo, Ross, and Angus.
There is no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He is a gentleman on whom I have built an absolute trust. Oh, worthiest cousin.
I'm going to stop it here just because the king says to Macbeth, oh, worthiest cousin. Now, this is irony, and it's actually a form of irony called dramatic irony, when the audience is in on a secret that the character doesn't know about. Or one of the characters don't know about. So obviously here, Duncan has no idea that his cousin Macbeth is actually kind of loosely planning or thinking about killing him. So it's ironic, it's dramatic irony that he says, oh, Macbeth, you are such a worthy cousin, because he ain't.
Sin of my ingratitude is even now heavy on me. Thou art so far before, the swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. Wouldst thou had less deserved, that the payment, both in thanks and payment, might have been mine. Only have I left to say, more is thy due, than more than all can pay.
Okay, so again, we see we have character delineation here of Duncan. He is laying on some heavy compliments here to Macbeth and to kind of Banquo too. Just that I am so grateful to everything that you have done. I can't be grateful enough. The sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy on me. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And then he says, I'm going to give you more honors. More is due than more than I can repay. I owe you more than is possible to even repay you. Now Macbeth is going to say, no. I owe you more than I could ever repay. I am, of course, your loyal subject, your loyal servant, and there is never any payment required. Now this is an important thing to note because okay, so you deserve more thanks than is possible to give. The metaphor is based on swiftly flying bird overtaking its quarry. If Macbeth had deserved less, Duncan might have been able to thank and repay him more appropriately. I owe you more than I can ever repay. But Macbeth says the reward is in itself. Okay, let's keep going here. Macbeth is going to, I just gotta get this page down here. 1 second, folks. All right. Macbeth is going to say, I will do everything possible to safeguard your honor and security. So he's talking to the king. And again, of course, this is ironic. It's dramatic irony because we know the opposite is actually true. He is actually thinking of killing the king, which means this is a lie. Duncan.
Service and loyalty I owe. In doing it pays itself. Your Highness' part is to receive our duties. And our duties are to your throne and state, children and servants, which do but what they should, by doing everything safe toward your love and honor.
Welcome hither. I have begun to plant thee, and will labor to make thee full of growth. Noble Banquo, that has no less deserved, it must be known no less to have done so. Let me enfold thee, and hold thee to my heart.
There if I grow.
Okay, so again, more character delineation here. He is a good king. He's grateful. He says, Banquo, I am acknowledging how deserved you are of my gratitude as well. I plan to give you both a lot more honors.
The harvest is your own.
My plenteous joys, wanton in fullness, seek to hide themselves in drops of sorrow.
Yeah, so here he says, I'm so happy. The two of you have made me so happy. I cannot control my tears of joy. So a little bit later on here, we're going to see that he is going to name his successor. And he's going to suggest that he's naming Malcolm the Prince of Cumberland. Let's take a look here at the annotation here. Establish our state, name my successor. The Prince of Cumberland was the title given to the heir to the throne. Okay, let's keep going here.
Sons, kinsmen, thanes, you whose places are nearest, know that we will establish our estates upon our eldest, Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland. Which honour must not unaccompanied invest him only, but signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers. From hence to Inverness, to bind us further to.
The rest is labor, which is not used for you. I'll be myself the harbinger, and make joyful the hearing of my wife with your approach. So humbly take my leave.
My worthy caller.
Okay, again here, calling him so worthy, but we have irony. This is dramatic irony. We're in on a secret. Macbeth is not being very worthy. So the king says, we're going to come for a visit to honor you, Macbeth. So please go ahead. Macbeth says, I'm going to ride ahead and I'm going to be the harbinger. The harbinger here is an officer of the king's household who goes ahead to prepare for the king's reception and accommodation. All right. So Macbeth is out of there. He's going to ride home quick and hopefully get there a lot quicker than the king does so that things are all in place, tidy and welcoming. Sorry. Here we have Macbeth giving another aside. Remember, no one else on stage can hear this. He is going to share his innermost desires. So let's take a look at the annotations here first. So Macbeth calls on darkness to hide his evil thoughts. let the eye be blind to what the hand is doing. And then Macbeth asks the stars to make his desire a reality, despite his horror at the action he is planning to take. All right, which we know is killing the king.
Prince of Cumberland! That is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies.
All right, so he's saying here that Malcolm, who's just been named his successor, the Prince of Cumberland, is in his way now, in his way of getting the crown, becoming king. So that is a step that he must either give up becoming king, or else somehow leap over Malcolm to get the crown. So he's got to figure that out.
Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye, wink at the hand. Yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see.
Okay, so again, here we have appearance versus reality. He is going to act like he is innocent when really he has very black and deep desires. We have some color symbolism here, right? So he's going to pretend to be full of light, but inside he's going to have black and deep desires. Appearance versus reality.
Oh, worthy Banquo, he is full of violence, and in his commendations of my head, it is a banquet today. Let's after him, whose care has gone before to bid us welcome. It is a peerless kinsman.
All right, so here we have some more character delineation, but of Banquo. So the Duncan here is saying, "Oh, worthy Banquo, you're very worthy too." But look at how valiant Macbeth is. So he's singing Macbeth's praises here, and Banquo though is not jealous. He is genuinely a good guy, and this is important to note. Both Duncan and Banquo are genuinely good friends and caring people to Macbeth. All right, so Act 1, Scene 5. Let's take a look here. At the Macbeth's castle in Inverness, Lady Macbeth is reading a letter her husband has sent to tell her of the prophecies and their partial fulfillment. Lady Macbeth expresses her determination that the third prophecy will also come true. So she's got her own desires that are brewing. She would like to be queen. Nevertheless, she believes that Macbeth is not capable of the direct action required, that is, the murder of Duncan, and determines to motivate him, to kind of spur him on. So thinks her husband basically is a wimp, is not able to actually kill the king. So she's going to put a plan together. A messenger arrives with the news that Duncan is on his way to Inverness. Realizing that Duncan's visit would be an ideal opportunity to carry out her plan, she herself calls on the spirits of darkness and evil to replace all of her nurturing feminine qualities with remorseless cruelty. Now, this is a quite profound, famous little speech that she's going to give. And she's going to suggest to all of the spirits in the world to unsex me here. And of course, she's talking about her gender. She doesn't want to be nurturing and loving and kind, as women are often portrayed. She wants to be cruel and hard and capable of murder. Macbeth arrives and is assured by Lady Macbeth that she will manage. She will manage the clearly understood but unstated scheme they have in mind. She reminds him that he should appear to be welcoming and loyal to hide their real intentions. So again, we have appearance versus reality. Let's go here. Scene 5. We're at Inverness, a room in Macbeth's castle. Enter Lady Macbeth reading a letter. Of course, the letter is from her husband, talking about the 3 witches.
They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest reports they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air, into which they vanished. Whilst I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor. by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail King that shalt be. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightst not lose the dues of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart, and farewell.
All right, so we see here in this letter that Macbeth establishes that their marriage is based on some teamwork, right? So they're going to work together, my dearest partner of greatness. And this is important to point out because a little bit later on, they are not going to be a team anymore. That's for sure. All right. Macbeth, though, clear to point out how greatness is promised to her as well. So the idea of being queen, he knows, will please her.
Lancelot and Coda, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily.
Okay, let's take a look at the annotation here. We see here, when you want something passionately, you also want to attain it by fair means. So she's talking about her husband, like, you have a good conscience. You are, loyal. You have some integrity. You would not act dishonestly, yet you would be happy to enjoy ill-gotten gains. The metaphor is based on gambling. Okay, so all right, let's get back to this.
Wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst strongly win. Thou'dst have great glance, that which cries, thus thou must do if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do than wishes should be undone. Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear, and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round which...
All right, so she says, get your butt here fast, like hurry home so that I can put, little whisperings of my thoughts into your ear. So drive away with fearless words. So she's gonna convince him to go ahead and follow her plan. So she does not want him to ruin her chances of becoming queen and, of course, him becoming king. She is going to put a plan together that is going to get rid of anything that stands in the way of both of them having golden rounds or crowns on their head. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here.
Fate and the metaphysical aid does seem to have thee crowned withal.
Enter a messenger.
What is thy tidings?
The king comes here tonight.
Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him? Who, were it so, would have informed for preparation.
So please you, it is true. Our Thane is coming. One of my fellows had the speed of him, who, almost dead for breath, had scarcely more than would make up his message.
Give him tending. He brings great news. The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements.
All right. So at first she's like, the messenger tells her that the king is actually coming too. And she's like, what? No. Why hasn't anybody told me this? I have to prepare the house, prepare the castle. And then she realizes, that is great news, right? She says the raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my castle. Fatal, of course, meaning he's going to die. Let's take a look here at her reference to the raven. Ravens were believed to be messengers of evil tidings. Okay.
Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. Unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, Stop up the axis and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the affect and it. Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pour thee in the dunnish smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold.
All right, so here she is putting out to the universe, all you spirits that are out there, come that help us, mortals here down on earth, take away anything in me that is nurturing and kind and giving and loving. Just fill me from the crown, from my head to my toe, with great cruelty. Make me cruel enough to be able to kill Duncan, right? So at this time, of course, women were looked at as just being very nurturing and loving and kind. Women don't normally kill people at this time. It's, the soldiers and people in the army. So take away all of my kindness so that I can kill. Harden me and take away any of my womanly nurturing ways. Come thick night. So here we have some color symbolism. Make, come thick night, and make sure that you pall thee in the dunnest smoke, meaning hiding, right? Hiding her true intentions, her intentions of killing, which is evil. So again, we have some appearance versus reality here. So make my knife not be able to see the wound that it makes. I don't want to see how my knife kills somebody. Make heaven not peep through the dark and tell me to stop. Like, don't let heaven or goodness prevent me from doing this. So give me the strength so that I do not give up, so that I can go ahead and kill.
Great Glum!
Enter Macbeth.
Worthy Cora! Greater than both by your hail hereafter! And letters have transported me beyond this ignorant present, and I feel now the future in the instant.
My dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight.
And when go...
All right, so her thoughts make the future a reality now. The future, of course, of the great being all hail hereafter, meaning king. Because they're going to, when you're king, you get hailed, right? So he says, oh, my dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight. And Lady Macbeth is going to say, and when does he plan on leaving? His answer is very interesting. He says, tomorrow, as he purposes. Sorry, I'm just going to get this page to stay down here. Tomorrow, as he purposes, he thinks he is leaving us tomorrow. Now that's interesting, because he's got a plan and she knows. Lady Macbeth is going to answer, oh, never shall sun that morrow see. He is not going to see tomorrow. So they are both clear on what the plan is for tonight. They're going to kill Duncan. He won't see tomorrow. Your face, my Thane, is as a book, though. She's going to tear right into him. Look, your face, you can't hide negativity or evil thoughts. So you better work on this, right? Your face is like a book and people can just read you. Make sure that you hide your intentions here. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. So again, here we have appearance versus reality. Look kind and innocent, but be cruel, for sure. He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. So she's got a plan here. I have a plan, trust me. I have everything under control. That will give us absolute power. Now this is interesting because there is a saying, a quote that suggests power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about this quote a little bit later on. So I have a plan, and whatever you do, Macbeth, do not arouse any suspicion. Just make sure, just look like you're clear, and don't let anybody think that you are up to anything, and leave the rest to me. So again, Lady Macbeth, not a typical kind woman of the time. She is capable of great cruelty.
Hence,
Tomorrow, as he purposes.
I never shall sound that morrow sea. Your face, my thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your face, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it.
Okay, so this again is imagery, right? So the idea of being a beautiful, innocent flower, but being a serpent. And again, this is some symbolism, the serpent being, sometimes being or representing the devil, right? So be evil like the devil.
He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch, which shall to all our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom.
We will speak further.
Only look up clear. To alter favor ever is to fear. Leave all the rest to me.
She is in charge, for sure. Let's take a look here at Act 1, Scene 6. There are 7 scenes here. They're very short. In contrast to most scenes in the play, this one takes place in daylight and in a beautiful and serene setting. With the exception of Macbeth, all the play's major characters are present as Lady Macbeth greets the king and his court. Duncan is generous in his praise and compliments. So again, we have character delineation here. He is a good guy. He's a good king. He does not deserve this deception. And another thing to note is he did not suspect the first Thane of Cawdor to be a traitor. He should be on his guard, right? He should not be so trusting of Macbeth as Thane of Cawdor either. So we'll talk about this a little bit later on, suggesting that Duncan's fatal flaw here is actually that he is too trusting. Yeah. So let's take a look here at Scene 6. Just give me a second. I'm going to try and get this page to stay down so that it doesn't flip over. Just give me 2 more seconds here. Okay. I'm sorry, my arm is shaking a little bit this side. It's hard to keep this the phone straight, the camera straight. Okay, Scene 6, the same. Before castle, servant boys attending on Macbeth. Enter Duncan. Duncan has arrived. King Duncan. We have his eldest son Malcolm, younger son Donalbain, Banquo, Lennox, Macduff, Ross, Angus, and some attendants. So these are some great noblemen of the court. So they all come to stay at Macbeth's castle. It's a great honor to have the king and all of these royal, these noblemen stay at your castle. Now, I want to point out to you there is a lot of dramatic irony in this scene. And remember, we said dramatic irony is when the audience is in on a secret. So let's move ahead here.
This castle has a pleasant seat. The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses.
Okay, so right from the get-go here, we have dramatic irony. The castle smells. Oh, the air is so pleasant in here. Except for, of course, we're in on a secret. This is dramatic irony. The castle does not smell sweet. It's actually smelling of deceit, right? The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself. Banquo suggests here that that this bird, the martlet, makes his home only where the air is so welcoming and so delicate. So he's going to say, oh, look, here's a martlet. Of course it's making a home here in this beautiful, welcoming castle. So both Duncan and Banquo are actually showing examples of dramatic irony here. We know that castle is anything but pleasant or delicate, right? So we have irony for sure.
This guest of summer, the temple-haunting martlet, does approve by his loved mansory that the heaven's breath smells wooingly here. No jutty, frieze, buttress, nor coign of vantage.
but he hath made his pendant bed and procreant cradle. Where they most breed and hunt, I have observed the air is delicate.
Yeah, so he's saying, look, there's a martlet here, and I've noticed that, these types of birds only live where the air is delicate, where there's, goodness and kindness. Yeah, right.
See our honored hostess.
All right, here we have some more dramatic irony. We're in a secret. She is not honorable. She's concocted a whole plan to kill him, right? So we're in on a secret, dramatic irony.
Love that follows us sometimes is our trouble, but still we thank his love. Herein I'll teach you how to bid God ill us for your pains, and thank us for your troubles.
All our service, in every point twice done, and then done double.
All right, so let's take a look at the annotations here. The love that follows us for your trouble. Even though the love of my subjects is sometimes an inconvenience, I am still grateful for it. I too am causing inconvenience, but by doing so, I am teaching you to thank me for my love, for love is the reason for my visit. So the king here owns everything, actually, and they are his. The castle actually is his castle. So by visiting the Macbeths here, he is teaching them to, be thankful for their own position, right, in life. All right, so let's keep going.
A poor and single business to contend against those honors deep and broad, wherewith your majesty loads our house. For those of old, and the late dignities heaped up to them, we rest your hermits.
Where is the thing called up?
All right, so here we have some more dramatic irony. She says, we will, we've worked hard to get the house together really quickly for you. We will pray for your wellness. How right. You're going to pray for his wellness? We are bound to pray for you. Yeah, we rest your hermits. We know that actually the opposite is going to happen, right? So we have dramatic irony here for sure.
It cost him at the heel, and a purpose to be his purveyor. But he rides well, and his great love, sharp as a spur, had hope into his home before it. True noble hostess, we are your guests tonight.
So here we have some more dramatic irony, saying that talking about Macbeth here, the Thane of Cawdor, where is he? And Duncan says, oh, he must have got here before us. He rides pretty quickly on his horse. And his great love is sharp as his spur. So he does not have great love for the king. He's planning on killing him, right? We're in on a secret here. And again, here, fair and noble hostess. She is anything but these things, right? She's planning on killing him. So, Lady Macbeth here. Your servants ever have theirs themselves, and what is theirs in compt, to make their audit at your highness's pleasure, still to return to your own. So let's take a look here at the annotation. This will explain that to us. The Macbeths are actually, the king's subjects. Everything they own is, in fact, the property of the king. They hold it in all trust, compt for the king, ready to give him an account, to make their audit whenever he wishes, and to return to him always what he owns. Yeah, so she just says, we are your servants, and everything we have here is actually yours. Yeah. So look at her being the innocent flower, right? Like kind of sucking up to him, for sure. Does Duncan fall for it? He sure does. We know that his fatal flaw is that he is too trusting. Give me your hand. Conduct me to mine host. We love him highly. Talking about Macbeth. No, you should not love him highly, Duncan. He's planning on killing you. And shall continue our graces toward him. And by your leave, hostess. So he leaves. Okay, so the last scene here, Act 1, Scene 7. Act 1, Scene 7. So Macbeth leaves the grand banquet that he is holding in honor of Duncan. So it's supper time, and he's, of course, put a grand banquet together. He needs time and privacy to consider his terrible conflict. He's having internal conflict over this, because Lady Macbeth is right. He has a conscience. He is a man of integrity, and he's having a lot of trouble, resolving to kill the king. He does want the throne, but he is absolutely appalled at the thought of killing his king. He thinks of a number of reasons for not going any further with his plans when Lady Macbeth, feeling uneasy at his absence, interrupts him. So again, Lady Macbeth is correct. He can't do it. He has too much kindness in him. She thinks he's a wimp, actually. Scornfully, she accuses him of inconstancy. You can't make up your mind. Cowardice? Oh, you're a coward. And lastly, she accuses him of not being a real man. So again, she resorts to emotional and verbal abuse. Does it work? Yes, it does. Okay, so she emphasizes her own strength by declaring that she would rather kill her child than withdraw from a solemn commitment. So here she's saying, I'm more of a man than you are. I'd rather kill my child while I was breastfeeding it and smash its head in than break a formal, committed promise. Macbeth finally agrees to proceed when Lady Macbeth presents her plan. She will ply Duncan's attendants with so much wine and liquor that they will be oblivious, so drunk. So the people, his servants that attend on him, are going to be so drunk. And then she and her husband will stab the king with his servants' weapons. So this is her plan, setting up the servants to be guilty. She bullies him into submission with emotional and verbal abuse, and then she's going to set up two innocent servants to be guilty of killing the king. So we have some pretty clear and disturbing character delineation of Lady Macbeth, right? She very much wants to be queen and her husband to be king. All right, so scene 7, a room in the castle of the Macbeths. We have servants and dishes with service. Then enter Macbeth. So again, he is having a hard time with this. He's trying to think, wow, I don't think I should do this. But if I have to do it, then I should get it done. We should do it quickly. If it were to be done, then it's best that we do it really quickly.
No servants ever have theirs themselves, and what is theirs in count, to make their order at your highness' pleasure, still to return your own.
Give me your hand. Conduct me to my host. We love him highly, and will continue our graces towards him. By your leave.
Okay, so this is our last scene, and it's quite short. Just maybe 2.5 pages there.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, if but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here, but here upon this bank and shoal of time we jump the life to come. In these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instruction, which being taught returns to plague the inventor.
All right, so he's having a tough time here. He is definitely suffering with what we call internal conflict, right? So good devil on one shoulder and the good angel on one shoulder and the bad devil on the other. All right, so he's saying, look, if I have to do this, then I should do it really quickly. But he's considering, even if I do this quickly, I'm going to face some consequences beyond this world. And there is judgment there in heaven. So he's thinking about this, and he starts talking actually about the idea of karma. He doesn't call it karma, but it's the idea that what goes around comes around. So he says, if we teach bloody instructions, they're going to be taught to us in return and plague the inventor. So essentially, what goes around comes around to whoever invented it. And this even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. So he's suggesting here, look, if I kill the king, then karma, this even-handed justice, karma, is going to eventually poison my own lips, you know, with my own ingredients. So this is interesting that he's going to say this because essentially what he's saying is if I kill the king, then it's quite possible that karma will have somebody kill me. Interesting. He's here in double trust. All right, so he's going to start to feel guilty about this. First, I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, number 2, I am his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Now, there's actually 3 reasons here, because he's not just his subject and not just his host, but by God, he's his cousin. So, like, there's 3 reasons here why he should actually be guarding the door, shutting the door, and not bearing the knife himself. And then he's going to go on to suggest that Duncan has actually been like a saint, right? Besides this, Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek. He has been so clear in his great office. He's been such a great king. And his virtues will plead like angels. It's like he's a saint in his decisions that he makes. Trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity like a naked newborn babe, striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the slightest couriers of the time. So people are going to be so upset if I murder him. They're going to be really upset because Duncan is like a saint of a king. He's a really good guy. Upon the sightless couriers of the air that shall blow the horrid deed in every eye. So everybody's going to cry. Everyone's going to be so upset that the tears shall drown the wind. There'll be so many tears that it'll drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent. I have no reason to kill the king, but only vaulting ambition. So he really wants to kill the king. Sorry, he doesn't really want to kill the king. He just really wants to be king, which o'erleaps itself. So if you think, here we have some imagery, right? So the vault, we have a vault that, people jump over in gymnastics. So this is essentially what he is admitting to. His ambition, it overleaps itself. And this is against the natural order. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on again with the chain of being, right? Okay, so then, as we know, Lady Macbeth gets suspicious and she says, what are you doing? Why did you leave the dinner? You make it look suspicious. Like, get back in there. What's going on with you? And he suggests, look, I've been thinking about this, wife, and we're not doing this. We will proceed no further in this business. He has given me a lot of honor, and he's brought me some golden opinions from all sorts of people. He's too good of a guy to kill. I'm not doing this. And this is when Lady Macbeth really lays into him. She starts verbally and emotionally abusing him, saying, you are a wimp, you're a coward, you're not even a real man. I'm more of a man than you are. All right, so let's get back into this.
This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. And pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye. A tear shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. Now, what news?
He is almost up.
It's almost
Why have
finished
you
dinner.
left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
Know you not he has?
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late,
And I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dress yourself? Having slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou a fear to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteem'st the ornament of life, and live a card in thine own esteem? Nothing I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the alley.
All right, so she gets right in. She's laying right into him. You are a coward. What happened? Are you drunk? Like, and have given up all hope? You are a coward. How dare you give up this promise that you made to me? And then she's going to go on to say, I'm more of a man than you are.
I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
All right, so he says, what are you talking about? I'm the bravest man in the country right now. I'm a real man. No other man has done more than me. I am a real man. But she's going to tear him down.
What beast was it then made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were the man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more than men.
All right, so she's got an angle here. So she says, you are an animal. You're not even a man. You're lower than man, because only a beast, an animal, would break this promise you made to me about me being queen and you being king. So she's saying, no, you're not a real man. You'll be a real man when you do what you promised me that you were going to do. Then you will be a man. And then she says, and you'll be even a greater man than you were before, courageous, brave, and all of that. All right.
No time, no place to then appear, and yet you would make both. Well, they have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you.
I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, whilst it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out had I so sworn as you have done to this.
What? So get this, she is hardcore cold. She says, look, I've given birth to a child before and have breastfed that baby. And I would rather bludgeon the brains of my baby than break a promise to you. So she's saying here, I am more of a man than you ever will be. I can do what I need to do to get what I want. So we call this behavior Machiavellian, and we're going to talk a little bit about this as well. Machiavellian behavior, and it's based on the writings of somebody called Niccolo Machiavelli, who said the end justifies the means. So if you have to bash your baby's brains out to become king, well, then that's what you have to do, because whatever you have to do is justified by the end result. So she's acting very Machiavellian here. And Macbeth says, well, what if we fail? And she says, why don't you be a real man and we won't fail? Be dedicated to this. And then she's going to go into her plan, right? After she explains her plan, then he is going to agree.
We fail! Screw your courage to the sticking place and we'll not fail.
Here's her plan.
When Duncan is asleep, what the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him? His two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. And in swinish sleep their drenched natures do lives in a death. What cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers who shall bear the guilt of our great quail?
Bring forth men children only. For thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males.
All right, so her plan is cold-hearted. Yep, she has the whole thing planned out. And he is even surprised at how cold-hearted it is. They are going to make his guards look like they are guilty. So again, we suggested this was some character delineation of her, right? She's very Machiavellian. In fact, she's so Machiavellian that he says, oh my goodness, you should never give birth to any females because your body is so cold-hearted that you should only, bring forth men children because you are just a cold-hearted biatch, basically. Okay, let's keep going.
Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber and used the very daggers that they have done?
Who dares receive another, as we shall make our griefs and clamour roar upon his death?
I'm settled. And bend thou Pete's corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide, but the false heart doth know.
All right, so she has been successful. So after she shares her plan, Macbeth says, you are cold-hearted. Wow, you even surprised me at how cold-hearted you are. And so he says, will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber and use their very daggers that they have done it? So he's agreeing with her. Yes, if they're full of blood and we use their swords, then nobody will ever think that it was us. Lady Macbeth says, by then you'll be king and no one will ever question it. Because when you question the king, it's called treason. So by then, no one will even question it. Because also we are going to act like we are full of grief, right? Oh my gosh, they're going to cry. And so they're going to, again, act with surprise. Somebody killed the king? So again, we have appearance versus reality. She has been successful. I am settled and I am devoted. So each corporal agent to this terrible feat, away and mock the time with fairest show. So Macbeth suggests that he will strain every part of his body. His metaphor is based on stringing a bow. He will deceive all observers. Okay, so he says, yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to deceive everybody. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. So again, appearance versus reality. And we see that this is reiterating also the statement that the witches made, fair is foul and foul is fair. Hide what we intend on doing. So yeah, so Lady Macbeth succeeds in convincing him to murder the king. All right, so that is the end of Act 1. What I'll have you do now, students, is take out your study packages and you can start working on the questions for Act 1 up to Scene 7. Those will be due next Monday, all right? I'm thinking I will give you a quiz on next Monday. Okay, also please check Edsby Daily, as I will be posting information that will help you to interpret this act a little bit better. Okay, take care, folks.